This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Joe DeGuardia here in London. Joe, how are you?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
Good to hear, good to hear. How are you finding London so far? I know you only got in yesterday, as you said to him.
Oh, it's great. Look, I love it over here. We've been, they say the weather in London's not that good, but actually it's been great. It's been perfect.
Don't worry, it's usually not like this. It'll probably be raining come Saturday.
I hear, but so far it's been great.
Joe, obviously your man Carlos Takam gets it ready to face Joe Joyce on Saturday night. Talk to me about this fight from your perspective. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of hype, and now you've got the WBO status on the line as well. How much is on the line for Carlos from his perspective now?
Oh, I mean, look, this is it. This is a key, crucial fight, and it's fighting the number one guy in the world in Joe Joyce, and the opportunities that develop from a win here are just endless. So it's a crucial fight.
He said, and a lot of fans expect this to not go over. Well, he didn't say he wouldn't go over distance, but he's saying it's going to be a war. Joe Joyce said that he doesn't think it will go over distance. Is this a fight which will just ultimately finish with inside the bout?
Well, look, like in boxing, that's why we ring the bell. Anything can happen, and certainly, look. It's the kind of fight where you can say there would be a knockout one way or the other. The fight might be short one way or the other, but I could see it going to distance as well.
I was going to ask, how do you think the fight plays out in your mind come Saturday night?
I think it's really a fight of attrition. Okay, if it goes our way, it's going to be a fight of attrition where we have to wear a long, drawn-out type of in-the-trenches battle. And by that I mean not necessarily where Carlos would be just throwing punches and winging and stuff like that, but something where you have to extend Joe Joyce and take him to deep waters. That's the real thing we'd be looking towards, is how is Joe reacting in deep waters?
Joe, recently over the pandemic, we've seen some scorecards in the UK which haven't pleased the fans, some which have maybe gone against the fighter which they believed had won. Is that a concern of yours, travelling over as an away fighter, if it went the distance and if you felt Carlos had done enough to win?
No, 100%. I mean, certainly we would be concerned, on the scorecards. You got to hope that we get the right scoring, but sometimes you don't always see that. And it's one of the reasons why I know that the trainers of Carlos are concerned about going the distance.
Carlos has a very fan-friendly style, so the UK fans have taken to him very well. But going into this fight with Joe, one thing which he has, which everybody speaks about, is his jab. He's got a brilliant jab. What else has Carlos been working on to look to negate Joe's best qualities?
Well, look, Carlos has to do the things he has to do, and certainly avoiding that jab is going to be an issue, and jab's an important part of the game. So he's got to slip, he's got to keep those hands right, he's got to get inside, get underneath it. There's many different ways to combat different aspects of a fighter, and in Joe Joyce, he's got to combat that size, that strength, and that reach, and that great jab.
We've seen Carlos previously say he'd still love another crack at Anthony Joshua. Do you think that's a fight which could happen at some point, especially if Carlos was to be successful on Saturday?
Well, right now we got to focus on Saturday night. Maybe Joe Joyce might be looking beyond Saturday night, and that's what I got to hope for. It's happened before in boxing so many times. It's not a book that has to be rewritten, because it's a book that's been written many times. So that's what we're really hoping for. And right now, Joe Joyce is the anti-Joshua fight for Carlos Takam.
Joe, I just want to get your thoughts on Joe Smith Jr., get the latest on him, what is going on with Joe?
Yeah, we're about to make an announcement about his next fight. It should be within the next week. Looking forward to it. I got a lot of high hopes for Joe Smith, and I know that there's a lot of fighters out here in the UK in that division, and I'm sure at some point in time we'll be making some defenses over here as well.
I mean, we've obviously got Frank and yourself in the same room today. Will you boys be having a meeting about that at some point whilst you're over here?
Well, look, we're certainly going to get together, Frank and I, and, I'm sure we'll speak about that as many other things. It'll be good to just get together and spend some time with Frank. But look, Joe Smith Jr. has got a bright future ahead, and, we have a lot of things planned for him. There's some huge fights back in the States. And in addition, though, there are a few UK fighters in that division.
Just to touch on the UK ones, in particular, you've got Callum Johnson, Lyndon Arthur, who's the WBO number one, and Anthony Yard, who have all called for that fight. Anthony Yard previously fought in Kovalev for the WBO title, but fell short. Out of those guys, do you think any of them could happen soon, especially with Lyndon being the number one with WBO?
I think those are all fights that would be 2022. We have something planned for Joe this fall. And in 2022, those three names could certainly be on the list.
You've also got the other world champions in Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. Will there be moves to try and make those unifications, those eventually move towards an undisputed bout if Joe was still obviously the holder of his WBO title?
Well, look, Joe's looking for the biggest fights. He wants. He's told me, I want the biggest fights out there. He wants the biggest names out there. He really wanted Artur Beterbiev, I'm not so sure Artur wants him, but we're looking for the biggest fights. So Beterbiev's a big one. Bivol's out there. He's, I don't see his stature as being as high now as it was. There's other big names in the division and an outside division, and there's another guy out there, right, who's a big name, Canelo.
Canelo, yeah.
So there's a lot of names out there, a lot of fights out there that are big fights. There's another, for Joe Smith, it's the biggest fight. That's what he's looking for, the biggest challenges, the biggest guys out there. And if you could get King Kong or Godzilla, Joe would say, okay, let's get him. How much am I getting?
I mean, you've mentioned Canelo there. Is he somebody you guys have considered, maybe not had any talks about, but certainly said, listen, if he moves back up to 175, why not?
Oh, look, it's certainly an interesting fight. I mean, I think it'd be a massive fight. But right now, we're going to focus. We have our fall fight that we're pretty much done with. And then 2022 holds a lot of possibilities. And certainly, like anybody else, if Canelo was on that ring list, we'd be paying attention. Because I think it's a big fight, a massive fight.
Right, Joe, I appreciate your time, sir. I know there's other people waiting to speak to you. Best of luck on Saturday. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thank you, Andy. Great speaking to you.